and my mom's necklace and asked if she could borrow it to wear it at her wedding. I refused, and she tried every method to convince me, and I had to put it in a place where I thought it'd be safe after my stepmother got involved. As the wedding approached, they both kept convincing me to let my stepsister have it. She bragged about affording a better one, but it was a matter of showing who's in control. I stood my ground and told them how serious I was, so they backed off. I didn't attend the wedding to stay with my dad. I remember wanting to change where I was hiding the necklace while the house was empty, but I found it was gone. After searching for hours, I called my stepmom, and she said not to worry, my stepsister took it and will return it when the wedding is over, but it was clear that I won't see it till after the honeymoon since she and her daughter was staying at the hotel. I screamed at her to return it, but she argued about not wanting to leave the guests and the wedding already started. I told her I'd get it myself, but she forbid me from coming, saying she'd have to keep me out from wanting to make a scene. I called the police and explained to them what was happening. I informed them my stepsister intended to leave for her honeymoon with my property. The police were sent to where the wedding was being held, and they were able to retrieve the necklace from my stepsister. My stepmom returned home and kept shouting at me, calling me petty and crazy, to send the police to my stepsister's wedding, ruining it and humiliating them over a piece of jewelry. She was screaming at my sick dad, telling him to handle me after the stunt that I pulled at the wedding. I defended myself, saying I only wanted an item that belonged to me that they took without my permission returned. She argued further that I could have waited to get it back, but I chose to burn the bridge with my stepsister and said that she considers me dead after this. She said stuff I can't mention, but here's all I can say: it was a bad night. I might have overreacted by getting the police involved, but I had no guarantee of getting the necklace back since I have experience with them in the past. So, was I wrong here? It's simple. If you don't want to get the police involved, you don't steal people's property. So no, you're not wrong.
Story time about why I beat up my best friend. So a little background information. Her and I had been best friends since we were in 7th grade. Her family was rich, mine was poor, and at first she was a really good friend. She was always there for me whenever I needed her, until our freshman year of high school, which is when her and I started hanging out with boys. Now, my mom was kind of strict. She wouldn't really let me hang out with boys, but her mom was more lenient about her hanging out with boys. Every weekend she would throw a party at her house, and she would throw them in her attic because 1, it was huge, and 2, her parents didn't give a fuck what she did up there. Anyways, she would always offer to do my hair and makeup before the party started, which always made me really excited because I never really put any work into my physical appearance. Well, little did I know, the only reason why she would offer to do my hair and makeup at these parties was so that way she could make me look like shit in front of all the boys. So after that, I taught myself how to do my own makeup and do my own hair, like for part 2. Part 2 about why I beat up my best friend. So like I said, I learned how to do my hair and makeup, and she went on vacation for like a month straight. Well, when she came home, she threw another party, and she was like, don't worry, after I'm done getting ready, I'll do your makeup and do your hair. And I was like, no, it's fine, I got it. She literally looks at me and she goes, are you sure? You don't really know how to do that. Like, it'll probably look really bad. And I'm like, why the fuck would you say that? She goes, no, like, I don't mean it to be rude. It's just that, like, I want you to look good in front of the boys and stuff like that. Like, sis tried to talk me into getting a shower for a full, like, 20 minutes. So after that, the whole night, she's literally being a pick me girl. She's making all these comments about me in front of the boys, and I just keep brushing them off until her next party. We got ready and I put on these expensive shoes that I had just bought, and she goes, wow, you just like really like to copy my style, don't you? So she starts making comments that whole night about how my family's poor and stuff like that, and she threw up all over my shoes. So I dumped the trash can that everybody had threw up in that night on her, punched her in the face, but like 2 months later she came to my house and apologized.
My boyfriend has a longtime female friend who's clearly into him, and I don't know what to do. This is gonna sound like the typical insecure girlfriend, but I promise it's not like that. My boyfriend and I have been together for over 6 months, and he's really great. He has a friend that he's had for years who is a girl. Normally, I'm not the type to be all like, you're not allowed to hang out with a single girl alone, but I'm considering telling my boyfriend that he's not allowed to hang out with this girl alone. This girl is obviously so into him, and she definitely wants me to know she's coming for him. She keeps saying stuff like, you don't know him like I do yet. Or, we used to go to that place together all the time long before you guys started dating. She also had cute pet names for him, and I didn't like it, and as soon as I heard it, I told my boyfriend I didn't like it, and he made her stop. Oh my gosh, Josh, remember when we went on a hike, just the two of us? That was the best day. I asked her straight up if she was into him, and her response pissed me off. She was like, I know it's intimidating how close he and I are, but don't worry, you're the girlfriend, I'm just a friend, right? With a smug smile on her face. I got so mad, but I couldn't talk to my boyfriend about it. I want to tell him to cut her out of his life so bad, but I don't know if I can do that. My boyfriend's dad passed away 2 years ago with a heart condition. He told me that his dad was his best friend growing up, so it hit him really hard. That's why he says she's like a sister to him. That's why I don't know what to do. I already asked him to set boundaries like she can't text late at night or come over to his place unannounced all the time and not interrupting our alone time. He was the only family my boyfriend had. Apparently, this girl really helped him get through it. She apparently was there for him throughout the whole thing. My boyfriend doesn't realize that she's into him, and I kind of don't blame him on that because all of her flirts are subtle enough that he doesn't realize, but enough to get me riled up. I know my boyfriend isn't into her at all, and he's completely friend-zoned her, but it's still so frustrating. I hate to admit it, but she's so good at getting under my skin, and I don't know what to do. I really need some advice.
Story time about how I ghosted my boyfriend of 5 years. I know that sounds so bad, but he was a thief, a liar, and a cheater. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Like I said, my boyfriend and I have been together for 5 years. We met in college and were basically inseparable for the first 2 years. On our third year of dating, I started working as a personal assistant for a big celebrity in LA. This meant I had to move to LA. You see, we lived in Texas at the time. Well, things got really bad after I moved. He wouldn't take my phone calls, he would totally ignore my text messages, and he would go out all the time. For the first few months, I tried to keep the peace so I wouldn't say anything. But eventually it got to the point where we wouldn't speak for an entire week. Luckily, my best friend still lived in Texas, so I had her follow him around for 2 days. And you'll never guess what she found. Shout out to my bestie. She showed up to his apartment early in the morning and waited for him to go to work, which he did. When he was done with work, she went back to his job to follow him back home. This is when she told me that he actually went to some girl's house. He didn't end up going home at all that day. This man actually spent the night at some girl's house. The whole time I was trying to call him and text him, and he did not take my phone calls. My best friend even took pictures of his car in this girl's driveway. Since I had this girl's address, I looked her up on the internet. I even found out her phone number because I paid some service online. And of course, I found her Instagram account. She had been posting on her story about hanging out with some guy. But the thing is, she didn't show the guy's face. She only showed his hand. Guess what? I recognize his hand in the picture because it has a tattoo on his pinky. So of course, I took screenshots. Later that day, my best friend followed him to a bar. At this bar, he met up with another girl. Unfortunately, I didn't have any information about this girl. I just knew that she drove a green car. My best friend followed him again the following day. He went to the beach, ran some errands, and then met up with another girl. Yes, we have 3 girls in 2 days. This girl was different because this girl was a friend of mine when I lived in Texas. And I knew she always had a crush on him, but she could never admit it. They went out to dinner and then back to her place. And again, my best friend sent me pictures of everything, so I had all the receipts. Side note, I think of my best friend spying on him and it makes me laugh. I hope you can all say you have best friends that are like that. So here's what I did. I got on the first flight back to Texas and did not tell my boyfriend that I was showing up at his apartment the following day. But guess what I find in his bed? Show up to my boyfriend's apartment to catch him in the act and you'll never guess what I found in his bed. My lying, cheating boyfriend had given me a key to his apartment. So I unlock the apartment and make my way towards his bedroom, really quietly. When I walk into his bedroom, I find him curled up in his bed with another girl. He's holding her in his arms, totally fast asleep. The worst part is, I recognize the girl that was with him. It was one of the girls who I used to be friends with in Texas. I walked backwards and closed the door behind me. That's when I just started to cry. I couldn't believe that he had done this to me. While I was working my butt off in LA trying to make a future for us, he was in Texas dating 3 women at once. No wonder he never picked up my phone calls or even texted me back. So here's what I did. I had printed out all the receipts I had, all the pictures of him hanging out with other girls that my best friend took while she was spying on him. I laid out all the pictures on his kitchen counter, and I left him a letter too. I told him in the letter that I could never forgive him and for him to never contact me again. Oh yeah, and that I wanted him to pay me back the $3,000 he owed me. You see, when we first started dating, he needed a loan for his car. I helped him out and gave him $3,000, which he promised to pay me. Obviously, we dated for 5 years and I never saw any of that money. So aside from him being a cheater and a liar, he was a thief. I left the note and the cards and left his apartment. I went to my parents' house and stayed with him for the weekend. Of course, my boyfriend, ex, showed up to my parents' house and begged to talk to me. My father told him to leave me alone and to never speak to me again. My dad told him that when he was ready to pay him the money. That made me laugh. I was totally crushed. I blocked him on everything, even through email. Of course, he got on someone else's phone and tried to contact me that way, but I never replied. He sends me emails every now and then and promises to pay me the money back. A few days ago, he sent me a picture of an engagement ring. He keeps telling me that I'm the best thing that he's ever had, that he's sorry and blah, blah, blah. I kind of want to reply to him, but I know that that's a bad idea, right? Or should I just talk to him and see what he has to say? What do you guys think?
Today's story time is about 2 things. A job I used to work and acid, and specifically how they don't go together in any situation. I always get comments all the time, like pretty much every day, of people being like, yo man, have you ever worked like a normal job? Like have you ever like done anything besides YouTube? And I've done a couple things. One of the things I've talked about, and the other one I haven't talked about. And today I'm about to talk about that today. So today's story time, it all starts off as a normal day, okay? I'm sitting in my room, and I was really excited. I was 16 years old, and I had just gotten hired at a pet shop nearby. Yes, a pet shop, where they sell pets, leopard geckos, kittens, goldfish, lizards, fucking guinea pigs. You know what a pet shop is. Anyway, I had just gotten hired at this pet shop, and at this time, I was doing YouTube. I had just started doing it, like, a little bit more frequently, and it was starting to pick up some traction, but it wasn't enough traction to, like, pay for essentials or anything, so I still wanted, like, a normal job on the side, and I also really wanted to work at this pet shop because all my friends worked there. I had, like, 3 friends that worked there from school, so they got me hired. My friends put in a good word, the boss liked me, we did an interview, he hired me, and my first day was coming up soon. So I was really excited, right? Like, life was really going my way. So I decided that it would be a good idea to drop acid to celebrate. Yep, later that night at about, 4, 5 in the morning, I was pulling an all-nighter. I thought to myself, yeah, I'm gonna drop acid because I'm gonna celebrate. Now, before I took this acid, I looked at it in my hand and I was like, well, here we go. And I put it on my tongue and I took it. Keep in mind, it was like 5 in the morning at this point, and it was May 14th. Now, when I saw the date on my home screen, I was like, shit, I need to set a reminder for my first day of work in a couple days. So I go on my calendar and I set a reminder for May 16th because that was my first day of work. So yeah, I set this reminder for May 16th at 6 a.m. I had to get up at 6, be at the shop by 6:30, and talk to the owner and help him open up the shop and stuff. So yeah, I did that. So in my mind, I thought I was all good. I was like, okay, we're good. I just took this acid. I'll just, relax for the rest of the night, and then I have the whole day tomorrow to relax and, kind of like recuperate, and then the day after that, I start work. So yeah, after I set this reminder for work on the 16th, I lay down and I start watching a movie, and it starts to kick in a little while later. And like right after it starts to kick in and like I really start to feel this shit, I get a call at 6:30 a.m. from a random phone number, and I answer it and I'm like, hello, and I hear, Austin, where are you? And I was like, what do you mean? Who is this? He goes, your boss? And he says the pet shop's name, and I was like, what? No, I don't start till the 16th. He's like, no, you start today. So I muted the phone call and I literally just said, fuck me. And I unmute the phone and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'll be there in like 10 minutes. He goes, okay, like, late on your first day, that's not a good look. I was like, I know, I'm sorry, I'll be right there. So I hang up, I jump out of bed, I get dressed, and I rush to this fucking pet shop on my bike, full speed. And let me tell you, biking full speed on acid and, rushing and being anxious was a fucking terrible feeling. I was ridden with anxiety. So I get to this fucking pet shop, I'm seeing shapes at this point. I go into the pet shop, and my boss is waiting. Austin, there you are. And I was like, hey, what's up? He goes, yeah, nothing. I need you to help stock the shelf. It's the dog food shelf. All the labels are already up on the shelves. You just have to go through this box, find whatever one matches the label, and put it there. I was like, okay, for sure. So I go over there, and let me tell you, trying to identify which dog food goes where and trying to read these labels while having an insane trip was not a very easy thing to do. And I was working at turtle pace. Like literally 30 minutes into this, I'd barely gotten like 2 of the dog foods on the shelf. And my boss walks over. He's like, Austin, you having some trouble? I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that good. He's like, what's wrong? And I was like, well, I'm just kind of having some trouble reading these labels and like matching them to the shelf. And he's like, come on, like here, I'll show you. And he starts showing me what to do. And I knew very well what to do. I was just very fucking out of it, and I could not, work at a fast pace. So after he shows me what to do and he walks away and leaves me to it, I just decide, okay, I have 2 options here. I either sit here all day and keep fucking this up and get fired for messing it up, or I just put it all where I think it's gonna go and try and go on to my next task. And yeah, my dumbass organized this shelf completely wrong, thinking it was the right thing to do. Obviously it wasn't, but I knew if I didn't hurry up and get that shit done, my boss was about to yell at me on my first day and humiliate me in front of all my friends. So I just put up a bunch of random dog foods in a bunch of random places and told him I was done. And he's like, alright, awesome, like I'm glad you got the hang of it. Take this food and go feed the beta fish. So I'm like, okay, great. So I take the fish food and I go over to the fish aisle and I start feeding these beta fish. And this was easy. This was a simple task. I know how to feed a fish. I've had many fish in my lifetime. Some may call me a professional fish connoisseur. Okay, like I know what I'm doing when it comes to fish. I'm just fucking kidding, but I definitely know how to feed a fish. It's not rocket science. So yeah, I feed these beta fish, and when I get done feeding them, I start kind of freaking out. Like it starts to hit me that I am tripping balls on my first day of work, and there's all these bright lights on me from like the overhead lights, and I don't know what I'm doing half the time, and I'm nervous and just anxious in general. I mean, everyone's nervous their first day of work at a new job, so imagine doing that while tripping balls. It's just not an easy task. So I start to kind of have a panic attack, and I sit down, and I put my head between my knees so I can like calm down, and all of a sudden, I get a tap on my shoulder like 5 minutes later from my boss. He's like, Austin, what are you doing? You sleeping on the job? Like, come on, man. It's your first day. You gotta get up. I was like, I'm not sleeping. He's like, really? Because it kind of looks like you're sleeping. Like, it definitely looks like you're sleeping. I was like, no, I'm not. He goes, well, let me tell you something. You can't sleep right now because you need to go and reorganize all of the dog foods. I just checked that aisle. All of it was wrong. You organized it completely wrong, all mismatched. I put it all back on the floor. Go redo that right now, please. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I walk over to the aisle and I start trying to reorganize these dog foods. And he's like over my shoulder the whole time watching me. And every mistake I make, he's like, dude, you're doing it wrong again. Like, how many times do I have to show you? So when he said this, something something just came over me. It was like a dark cloud of anger. I turned to him, I look at him, and I go, no, I quit. He goes, what? You're gonna quit on your first fucking day because you don't know how to organize some dog food? And I look him in the eye, and I just go, no, I'm not quitting because I don't know how to order dog food. I'm quitting because I am on fucking acid, tripping absolute balls, and I'm here working at a fucking pet shop in the middle of this. I quit. And I turn around and I start walking away. And he grabs me by the shoulder, and he goes, what'd you just say? Acid? You're on acid right now on your first day of work? You really think that's responsible, Austin? And I was like, no, it's not responsible. And that's why I quit. Because I'm on acid, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm a dumbass, I know. But I didn't think that this was my first day. I had my scheduling all wrong. And he goes, I can't believe you. Like, your friends, they vouch for you up and down, but I can't have someone that comes in all messed up to their first work shift. And I look at him again, and I was like I said, it was an accident. But yeah, I agree. That's why I quit. He goes, you can't quit because you're fired, Austin. And I was like, nope, I'm pretty fucking sure I just quit. I just told you I quit. You don't need to do the whole, oh, you can't quit because you're fired thing. Like, it's not a movie. You don't need to add dramatic effect. And he gets all angry. He's like, Austin, just fucking leave. Just get out of my sight. I don't want to see you anymore. I was like, okay, good luck with the pet shop. And I left. Now listen, I definitely took the L in this situation. It was a very irresponsible move of me in this whole situation to do what I did. But at the same time, I just couldn't fucking be there any longer. I needed to leave because it was not a good environment for me. I'm well aware that I created the bad environment myself, but, had to get out of there. But yeah, guys, moral of this story is, don't do anything that I just talked about in this story time. Ever. Not a good idea. But yeah, guys, that's the story time of how I got fired from one of my only jobs that I've worked. And I had a good run. It was a long job. I was there for like an hour and a half. That shit was crazy. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much the end of the story time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. I would really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all later. Peace.
Are you ready for a gross nursing story? If not, move on. Okay, so let's go. I was admitting this patient onto hospice. He was a homeless man with some severe mental illness, and I had gotten report that prior to this terminal illness that he was coming onto hospice for, he had been in the hospital due to severe burns from an accident. Now, I got a report that he had been there for months, very combative, very aggressive, and refusing most of his wound care. So by the time I saw him, he was not combative. He was still aggressive and like not super nice, but he was going to allow me to do his wound care. So when I saw him, he had a sheet like up to his neck, and I gave him medication so I could do the wound care, and he was being totally cooperative. So this is an admission. So he had just come from the hospital. So I needed to do it head to toe. So I pull the sheet down. Do you know where this is going? This poor man is covered head to toe with bugs. Thousands of bugs, thousands covered. I literally don't know how he was laying there and not like hitting the bugs. Like, I don't know how he was not feeling bugs all over him. So I needed to call like in reinforcements because now the bugs, I kind of let them loose by pulling the sheet back. Now they're all over the bed. They're all over the ceiling. They're getting on me. I'm trying to clean him up the best I can, and I need to look at the wounds. So I start cutting back his wound bandages. Covered in bugs. All types of bugs. Ants, flies, alive bugs, dead bugs, grubby looking bugs, roaches. I'm not like blaming the hospital because I know they really couldn't touch him, but I don't know how this could have happened and how it could have been missed because it was literally thousands of bugs. Now to get to the good part of the story. He didn't seem to be bothered by any of it, thank God. It took hours, but we got him totally cleaned. We got all of the wounds clean. We got him clean. We got the bed clean. We got the room clean. He got clean clothes, all stuff clean. And we allowed him to have a peaceful and dignified death at this board and care. So he was comfortable, he was clean, and he was taken care of. So happy Halloween!
Congratulations, you've unlocked the demon. Quick disclaimer, a Ouija board is a fucking tool, not a goddamn toy. So if you do not know how to properly utilize a Ouija board, do not fucking use it. Now that we have that cleared up, here we go. My ex goes to UCCS, and at the time of the story, she was living in a house with 2 other teammates from the track team and 2 friends of the track team or whatever. So there was 5 people living in this house. And one night around Halloween, one of the roommates runs on in with the Ouija board and goes, "Hey guys, you guys want to play?" I look at my ex, Susan, and go, "Hey, No, actually, we got plans tonight. We're gonna go see a new movie that just got released a couple days ago, but thank you. Her roommates were kind of bummed and go, oh, okay, so, but real quick, before we leave, how long are you going to be utilizing a Ouija board tonight? They go, oh, like an hour or two. I said, okay, do me a favor, okay, bud? I need you to follow the rules. Exactly. And I need you to make sure everyone says goodbye. Don't leave it open, okay? Her roommates had heard some of my ghost stories, and they're like, yeah, whatever, Murph. Don't even remember what movie we were seeing, because in my head I was thinking, why the fuck would you play with a Ouija board? That's not something you play with. I looked at Susan after the movie and said, you need to text your roommates to see if they're done utilizing a Ouija board, because I'm not walking in that house if that fucking thing's open still. She rolls her eyes and goes, okay. They were done like an hour before we got out, and so I'm like, okay, let's go home. On the way home, my ex looks at me and goes, why do you hate Ouija boards so much? Like, who cares? Oh, Casper the Friendly Ghost comes out. Who gives a fuck? I said, first of all, Casper is not the only thing that comes through that board. You can get some really fucked up shit through that board. You remember Insidious? Remember that monster red, like, Wish Darth Maul looking motherfucker? That can come through. If the portal is not closed properly and the channels aren't shut, you guys are going to have a demon house. She kind of laughed at me and I said, listen, I don't know if it's you that doesn't believe in ghosts. I don't know what the Hindu religion says about ghosts at all, but I need you to understand it's very real. And if they don't close that board properly, your house is going to be royally fucked. So I go to drop her off and she goes, aren't you coming in? And I said, I'm not spending the night, but because A, I have work in the morning, and B, I don't really want to be in a house that just had a Ouija board opened. So I'll come in for a minute, but then I do have to leave. And when I went to leave, she was like, okay, babe, did you feel anything? I was like, no, but that does not fucking mean that there's not something waiting. So do me a favor. If anything starts seeming out of the ordinary, don't fucking mock it. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, I know you. And anything that seems somewhat paranormal, I don't know if it's just so that you can relax, but you always go, oh, it's just Casper. So yeah, don't do that, okay? She says, of course, love you, and I go back home. Well, I always visit on a Tuesday, so the following Tuesday showed up, and I went down to visit her. Before I even walked in, she goes, okay, before we go in, some weird shit did start happening after you left that night, and I don't know what exactly is going on. Okay, like what? Well, some shit's been getting moved, and when it's just us girls in the house, we've been hearing male voices, and we don't know what's going on, because it sounds like it's down in the basement, but there's no one there. What else? I may have called it Casper, and at that point in time, it was just the roommates that were being affected, but because I said it's just Casper, some shit's been happening to me. Of course it is, because I told you not to do something you didn't want to listen. Awesome. Good job. But not only that, apparently I'm the only one with a shadow figure. Of course you are. So what do? Well, I'm going to do what I normally do that seems to lift whatever bad feeling is with me. But I'm going to do this, and I need you to not fucking mock me or whatever the fuck has attached itself to you. Okay? Okay. So give me your hands, and I'm going to say it, and you're not going to mock this fucking thing again. Got it? Capiche? And before you guys ask, I'm not going to tell you, because it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but what I say works for me. Capiche?
I'm literally about to cry right now. Like, all of the puzzle pieces are just coming together. So yesterday, around like 3 p.m., my dad got home from work. He came home for like 20 minutes, and he left again to go to the gym. And as soon as my dad pulled out of the driveway and left the neighborhood, another car pulled in front of my house and started knocking on the door. And obviously, I didn't answer the door because, like, stranger danger, are you freaking kidding me? I'm not about to get kidnapped, honey. No. And I found it kind of odd how they knocked on my door and came to my house as soon as my dad left. Like, a little suspicious.
this. So I'm looking through my window, looking who's at the front door, and it's this like older guy who looked familiar. It looked exactly like the big guy that was following me around Walmart the other day. And once I noticed that it was the guy that had followed me around Walmart, immediately broke down crying. My dad calls me, he's like, who's that guy at the door? I tell him the story about how I got followed around Walmart, and he's like, Kayla, stop freaking out. A lot of guys look like that. You may just be mixing things up in your mind. I promise it's not a big deal. I was like, okay. I won't psych myself out, so I just ignored it, didn't think anything of it, and I completely forgot about it. Then today, I literally just got back from Walmart. I went to Walmart to get a bunch of Christmas pajamas. As you can tell, because I literally have 2 bags full of Christmas pajamas. So I walk into the store and I start looking for the pajamas. And as I'm walking through the aisles, you'll never guess who I saw. The same guy who followed me around Walmart and the same guy that was knocking at my door. This man looks me up and down and smiles at me. Like I'm about to start crying. Like I'm so freaked out. I cannot explain the distress I felt. And we like locked eye contact. This man goes, and we just stare at each other. And I just immediate chills down my body. So I get my pajamas. I call my boyfriend. I tell him that this guy is like following me. He's like, okay, Kayla, literally leave the store ASAP. So I check out and I leave and I get to my car as soon as possible. Get into my car and I start crying. Because now I feel like the puzzle pieces are really coming together. I feel like the person who put the AirTag on my car might have been that dude just because he showed up to my house. How else would he know where I live? Because he didn't follow me home that night. I didn't go straight home. I went to a haunted house after we got pumpkins from Walmart the first time he followed me. So I think he's the one who put an AirTag on my car. But I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't want to freak myself out simply because I am going to be at my dad's house tonight. So yeah, verge of tears, just the verge of tears. Before I get any comments, yes, I'm telling my father about this. Yes, I will be taking further actions. Will I be getting cops involved? Most likely. Because I don't mess around like this, honey. I don't mess around like this. A day in the life of Kayla Malik.
Storytime about the time I invited a Tinder date over to my house and accidentally met his mother. Like many other unfortunate souls, my non-existent dating life has me turning to the dating apps. This particular one is from Tinder. I'd been chatting with this guy for a few days and everything was going swimmingly. We had so much in common and we were looking for the same things. His pictures were cute and he didn't live too far away. All seemed well. I invited him over to grill out some burgers in my backyard. He asked if he could bring anything, and I said sure, bring some bacon for the burgers. He agreed and said he'd be over soon. Given his distance, I expected him to be over in 15 minutes. I started to grill and season the burgers. Half an hour later, he messaged me and said, I've driven by a couple times and chickened out. Are you sure you want me to come over? Maybe a red flag, but I chalked it up to nerves and just said, come on, I'm hungry. So this haggard-looking guy shows up, much different than his Cedric picture. That's alright, I can move past that. From the moment he walked up, I kid you not, he did not take a breath. Within the first 5 minutes, I knew his life story from his aunt who hated their grandma to his father who likes to collect taxidermy. Not a single breath. Again, I figured he was just nervous. I put the burgers on, and when they're ready, he pulls out a Ziploc bag from his pocket with 2 pieces of bacon in it. He puts them on only his burger. Okay. We sit down at the patio table and start eating. I finish my burger before he even started his. He did not stop talking the entire time. When we sit down, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a vial. He must have noticed me staring at it, flipping between if he was about to snort something strange or build some sand art. He said, oh, all super casual. I'd like to introduce you to my mother. I just stared at him for what felt like an eternity. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or run. He said, I like to bring her to any important event in my life. She also has ashes in this necklace I'm wearing, and this ring I have on, and this half-sleeve tattoo is for her. Now, mind you, I've lost too many people close to me, and I do not judge people based on their grief cycles. We all cope differently, and I respect that. But homeboy brought a vial of his mother's ashes and set them on the table for our first date. I simply could not. He finally finished his burger, and I made some excuse about having to clock in and finish some work at 9:30 p.m. He texted me before he even got to his car and told me, my mother really liked you. I can't wait to see you again. I told him that I didn't feel a connection to him or his mother.
Nice username, racist. Storytime. Please keep in mind that I've only been in prison in Pennsylvania, and this is just my experience, okay? Not everybody has the same experience. So a lot of people think that most people in prisons across this country are racist. And while it's true that some states may be segregated by race inside their prisons, it's not like that everywhere. In California, for instance, you go with your color. If you're white and you come into a prison, you either go with the white people or you get stabbed. It's not like that in Pennsylvania. I've talked about it before. We're a lot more geographically segregated out here, so people from the same area stay with people from the same area. That being said, there are still plenty of racist individuals inside of Pennsylvania prisons. This story time is about a guy that came into the prison I was in, was outwardly racist, and the fallout that happened because of that. So summer of 2016, a bus comes up to the jail. It was a bunch of new dudes that had just left Camp Hill for classification and were now coming up to their home jail. Because that's what you call your institution in prison after you leave classification. It's called your home jail. So we're sitting at dinner at the same time they're in there, and they're sitting at the table with us. So, we're just talking to them, asking them where they're from and shit like that. Don't really think much of it besides that. Well, a couple days later, I'm in the yard. I see the same dude, so I say what's up to him. Me and my homies are walking, because he wasn't from that far away from where we're from. So as we're walking by him, he goes to take his shirt off because he's about to play handball. He's got a huge swastika on his chest. So I just look at my homies, I'm like, oh yeah, fuck no, I'm never talking to dude again, fuck out of here. Well, it didn't take long for the entire prison to hear that this dude was walking around with a huge swastika on his chest. A couple people pressed him about it, and he just said something along the lines of, no, that's not what it means, I got it when I was younger, you know, I was confused, something like that. Well, that wasn't the case at all, he was just trying to cover his ass. So he starts preaching this white supremacist bullshit to a bunch of other white dudes in the jail. Most of the people that he ended up talking to were all the people that had got kicked out of other gangs and stuff like that. Dudes that were just desperate as fuck to be a part of something, no matter what it was. Mind you, other states have like the Aryan Brotherhood and stuff like that. They're not in Pennsylvania. Ad break, y'all. Download the link in my bio. It's called Dice Streams. It's super fun. I've been playing it every day. Thank you. So he's got a little gang of about 8 people that be walking around with him. Well, most of the other people in the prison besides them, they're not too happy about it because, like, we don't fuck with that racist shit out here. So obviously there are racist people here in prison, but they're not outwardly racist. They're too pussy to let anybody know, so nobody really knows who they are. It's not too often that people are just outwardly racist walking around the jail causing an issue. So like a month later, it's night yard, everybody's out in the yard, everybody's chilling, right? It was like 90 out, so I wasn't trying to play ball because I couldn't get in the shower when I came in. So we walked over to the basketball court just to watch the games that they were playing. Well, as we walk by, the dude with the swastika goes running by to get the handball and runs into a black guy. Black guy turns, just starts throwing his hands, just starts beating his ass. Well, dude's homie sees it, so they run over to try to help. Well, then the other guy's homie seen it, and they run over to help. Next thing you know, the racists are getting beat up like 20 on 8. And they're getting beat bad. There's 3 people on each one of them getting their heads stomped in with boots and everything. And we're just all watching because, like, we don't give a fuck. That's on you. The COs run over with the mace, but the way that they spray it, it hits the wind, comes back, and hits everybody on the fucking basketball court. And we all just sit there and choke for 40 minutes. I'm in the field because I'm making a crop circle.